the city, I did it for the love, I did it for the people, I did it for us.
Back on this rap ish, I ain't even broke a sweat, homie, this practice. Pondering my next move, staring at my track list, hope I ain't missing my window. Praying like a Baptist, Seattle's own, tired of this Game of Thrones. They made a list of the best rappers and guess who wasn't on? While the disrespect continues, I'm steady packing these venues. Guess if you ain't at the table, you on the menu. And I'm that spitter, baby, they don't want you to see, but everybody's out the Capitol Hills rocking with me. Boys smoke the trays and ponder getting their life together. I'm comfortable with my role, so I'm like, whatever. Me, I ain't got a job, but I work hard. And you don't work hard, but you got a job. The irony is I'm judged while you feel the applause. I'm slept on, that's why I had to set this alarm. My dudes is armed, I'm armed with this arm charm. Body banging like she got that cream from Barry Bonds. Yeah.
I did it for the city, I did it for the love, I did it for the people, I did it for us.
That Dre season is here, a real hitter with a mic, I'm everything that they fear. With that hood ain't the same, I was all on their ass, I'm level-headed. So yo, my dudes love when I spaz, and I'm so over Seattle's passive-aggressive attitude. They don't call you back, what they really saying is F you. While I'm from the same place, I move at a different pace. I prefer if you just said it to my face, damn, I did it.
I did it for the city, I did it for the love, I did it for the people, I did it for us.
Average dudes with they average spit, writing average rhymes, knocking average chicks. The closer I get, I can feel the people starting to shift. I'm loyal to a fault, and everybody can't come with. Rap's a rich man's game, I'm only playing with change. They bang models and singers, I'm knocking my old flame, I'm different. The crowd, I move with the chosen few. Black thoughts, I could be the front man for the roots. No diamonds and gold, I'm on my sticks and stones. If we can see your panty line, you should have on a thong. My team is strong, through this fire we forged a bond. And they already know what it is when I get on. To the hearse, party like it's December 31st. When I'm on my deathbed, I probably cracking my nurse. You ain't got the bars to compete. I'm a verbal athlete, deflating these boys so they say that I cheat. Damn, I did it.
I did it for the city, I did it for the love, I did it for the people, I did it for us.
Yeah. I should probably start by apologizing for the long wait, man. You know, I know I be tripping. But I'm not just a rapper, I'm an artist. And, you know, my creative process is a little bit different than most. Nonetheless, I want to welcome everybody out to the Dre's Experience. I got TCF in the building. My whole camp's here with me. I got the band in here laying this cool-ass vibe. And I'm Seattle's own. Let's get into it.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Morning Update Show, and happy Thursday to you. I'm your co-host, Trey Holiday, and we got a great lineup for you as always. And y'all know we got to bring in my guy, Big O. What up, Big O?
Bay Holiday.
Hey.
What's up? How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you this fine morning? A little bit cloudy, but still fine, right?
Man, you know, the weather in Seattle's like the politicians, man. You know what I'm saying? Their position changes daily and even by the hour.
There we go.
Good morning, everybody. Want to welcome you to the Morning Update Show and remind you right now is the perfect opportunity to tag and share the stream. Go ahead and share that. Ooh, I like that. Oh, yeah. Go ahead and share the stream with people who you feel will appreciate culturally relevant news and information emanating from right here in the Emerald City. As usual, before we get going, got to give a few shout outs, of course, to our partners at the South Seattle Emerald and also KBCS 91.3 out there at Bellevue College. We're continuing with this reminder here that appointments are no longer necessary for vaccinations at City of Seattle vaccination sites. So, man, if you're looking to get that vaccination, get jabbed, so to speak, go ahead and look up the vaccination sites, the times and locations. The City of Seattle, I know Lumen Field is one of them. Rainier Beach is another. And vaccination, no appointment necessary. And also, vaccination is free. So if someone asks you to Cash App them or send or mail the vaccination to your house, that's a flag right there. Trey Holiday, good show here today. First thing we're going to jump into is survivor from Black Wall Street from Tulsa, Oklahoma, testified yesterday in front of Congress. And then also later in the show, we're joined by the big fella himself, Jake Gravbrot. He was out there the other day when Alaska Airlines, when the Copper River salmon landed there at the airport. So we'll talk to him a little bit about that too.
Nice. Well, I'm excited, man. Always have a great lineup. Ready to get into it, oh.
All right. So, there's very few Black people that I bump into, especially in my age group, who don't know that story of Black Wall Street in Tulsa, Oklahoma, going to 100 years now in just a few days. This thriving, prosperous area, the Greenwood area of Tulsa. I mean, it was very prosperous, and it was a massacre. Hundreds of Black people killed, all their businesses burned to the ground, really just by jealous, racist white people. We got two things to show you here. First is a clip from CNBC about the testimony that occurred yesterday on the Capitol.
And the House held a hearing today on the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre ahead of the 100-year anniversary later this month. In the early 1900s, Tulsa's African-American district of Greenwood was known as Black Wall Street, with its own luxury shops, restaurants, movie theaters, a library, hospital, even its own bus and taxi service. Until the evening of May 31st, 1921, when a white mob descended on Greenwood, shooting Black people indiscriminately and burning more than 1,200 homes, hundreds of businesses, along with churches and schools. Some survivors saw airplanes dropping turpentine bombs on houses. Now, when the massacre ended 48 hours later on June 1st, 1921, according to witness accounts, hundreds of survivors were rounded up at gunpoint and forced to march to camps where they were held for weeks. Survivors also recounted seeing Black bodies dumped into the Arkansas River and into mass graves. Well, today, two of the last living survivors of that massacre flew to Washington to share their stories and demand justice. Mr. Hughes Van Ellis, known as Uncle Red, is 100 years old, and his sister, Ms. Viola Fletcher, or Mother Fletcher as she's known, is 107 years old. Listen to what she experienced during one of the darkest moments in U.S. history.
I will never forget the violence of the white mob when we left our home. I still see Black men being shot, Black bodies lying in the street. I still smell smoke and see fire. I still see Black businesses being burned. I still hear airplanes flying overhead. I hear the screams. I have lived through the massacre every day. Our country may forget this history, but I cannot. I will not. And other survivors do not. And our descendants do not.
Both were gracious enough to stop for a minute to talk with me on their way to the White House, they said, for a meeting with Vice President Harris. It's important for you to be here in Washington today and share your story.
Well, we really wanted justice on all of this affair after such a long time ago. You would think before now that something has been done about it. So that's why we're here trying to make sure we get justice for it.
Ms. Fletcher says as a result of the massacre, she never finished school beyond the 4th grade, never made much money, and struggles to support herself. The survivors are part of a reparations lawsuit filed last year, which argues that Oklahoma and Tulsa are responsible for what happened during that massacre, which historians believe left as many as 300 Black people dead, 10,000 homeless, and the community of Greenwood destroyed. Mr. Van Ellis, who is a World War II veteran, told lawmakers today, quote, "Please do not let me leave this earth without justice." Blessings to the both of them.
Wow, blessings indeed. And honestly, the fact that they have, clung really to their lives in such an elderly age, I got to be honest, it's almost as if their voices are so needed to really personalize that massacre right there that happened in Tulsa. And, there's cities all across the nation this year that are really going to be celebrating the resilience of what it took for Black folks to congregate, to build these towns This is a shining example of what was done when they said we can do something and build something together. And unfortunately, we see that it caused, this racist act to sit there and bomb them. They obviously had a coordinated effort. There was people that were on the ground shooting folks. There was people in planes throwing bombs. I mean, to be honest, I'm just so glad that they were able to give their testimony to Washington, D.C. or in Washington, D.C. and really, utilize their personal experience to make this about the people and not just about something that happened in history. Really personalized it for me. Oh,
Yeah, and what we see is the history of our country, and the Black Wall Street in Tulsa, Oklahoma is probably one of the most widely known. I remember as a little kid learning that story of what happened there, but that's not the only story. That's just the most widely known. And we've seen here, especially when Black business districts thrive and they prosper throughout history. One was brute force. We see that. Then second, in transportation, so many Black business districts across America, especially down south. Well, hey, that's a great place to put a freeway right in the middle of. And they kill off our business districts and thrive and everything else. And now, it's very use of political systems. So it went from brute force to infrastructure, what I'm saying, now political systems to basically destroy Black economics. And so I wanted to share this. We've actually played this clip now over the last year about 3 times. I think it's important that people actually see this is amazing footage captured almost 100 years ago of booming Black towns in Oklahoma. I mean, like, Black people were having it their way.
And Oklahoma is a unique space in terms of the number of African-American towns that were established. Some suggest upwards of 50 African-American towns between 1924 and 1928. Reverend S.S. Jones was going around documenting this sort of self-determined, vibrant African-American communities. You see the African-American educators, doctors, lawyers, landowners, oil barons. And I think that's what's so remarkable about this footage. To think that individuals, how many years out of slavery, are now owning oil wells that are producing 2,000 barrels a day. Is that not the ultimate American dream? Is that not the ultimate American story? It flies in the face of what I think some people consider part of African American history and culture. And I think that was one of the things that Oklahoma and what S.S. Jones is really kind of showing is that African American history and culture is not a monolith. And in a way, it became kind of like a marketing tool to encourage individuals to migrate, to move there, that this is a place where you can live, you can thrive, and peacefully reside. There were still palpable racial tensions. There are lynchings, there's Jim Crow, segregation, there's all of these things, and you still have an African-American community, or many communities, that really speak to the fortitude and resilience of Black people in this country.
So that clip there from National Geographic, and I like playing that every once in a while because seeing is believing. And when we tell people, these thriving Black business areas and districts and communities and everything else, not only just there in Oklahoma, but across America. And a lot of times, they were really forced out. I mean, a lot of people, it's hard for people to believe the Central District here in Seattle used to be a very vibrant, thriving, self-contained Black community. We had our own drugstores, our own dry cleaners, our own supermarkets, our own clothing stores. I mean, you never really had to leave the Central District.
Absolutely. And, we grew up understanding a lot of that framework and a lot of the folks that really migrated here and made it what it was. And, that's why so many efforts right now are on the ground to reestablish it, to make sure that that history never dies out. Because we do see with, as you were talking about, with infrastructure, oftentimes it erases, it tends to erase what once was there. And so it's important that we capture these stories stories now so that future generations understand what made up certain areas throughout America. You're absolutely right. I mean, we have booming towns, man. And for me, it's always a showcasing of resilience.
I think that what made that testimony in Washington, D.C. so powerful and people really making noise about this 100-year anniversary is that we see right now in Washington, D.C. real life revisionist history. I mean, you got people just saying that the insurrectionists were tourists, and these guys are wild. You know, they voted against the commission and everything. They're literally trying to rewrite history in real time. This is why it's so important that we know our history, we cling to it, and we don't let anybody rewrite history to benefit their narrative.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And I think that's another reason why, I'm sorry, just platforms like this are so important, right? Because when we're talking about capturing it in real time, oftentimes people, you wouldn't even believe what is going on if you don't see it and have updates on the daily, because it does change over time.
Real deal. Before we shift back into local news here, want to remind everybody that you can also catch the Morning Update show wherever you listen to podcasts. So SoundCloud, we got that link right there. Oh, look, it's up on the screen. So, of course, SoundCloud, but also across Apple and Google and Spotify and anywhere else that you listen to podcasts, just go ahead in there and search Converge Media Network. Good stuff. And actually, I think Chats with Trey is going up on the podcast too.
I know. I'm excited. Yeah. Another edition.
Good stuff. So, Council Member Tammy Morales, you talk about somebody who's been in the news a lot. Council Member Morales was here with us on Tuesday morning. Then we saw Council Member Morales on CBS this morning on national platform yesterday. And also, though, yesterday, and we were off air when these tweets went out, but Councilmember Morales, we asked her to follow up. She said that she has some receipts for as far as letters from people that had sent letters saying that they were intimidated or not being listened to as far as by the executive branch. We want to put up a few of these tweets here. The first one kind of addresses anti-Blackness. Councilmember Morales says, I want to affirm that my office and I stand with Black and brown people in city government. I shared yesterday morning on WW Converge, that's the morning update show right here, that council received 2 letters from city employees expressing they felt their work on participatory budgeting, that's PB, and other city projects wasn't being represented fairly. So that was her first tweet right there that mentioned us here at Converge. And we're going to go ahead and put up her second tweet. And we're also going to put the link to it because she put hyperlinks to some letters that her officers received. In an effort to be transparent with the community, you can view both of these letters here. And so all you is sharing the link in the comments right now to this actual tweet where you can go and you can read these letters and everything else. Trey Holiday.
Yeah. I mean, you know, one of the things that I think is so important is that our elected officials, that they do actually show real actions of transparency. And it was one of the things that, you know, was concerning to me, especially as so many in community are, you know, working on the front lines, so to speak, to really find ways to build the trust, right? And to hold our elected officials accountable. And so, you know, for her to, you know, put this out really kind of right after, you know, she said that she would and make it available. You know, we asked the question if they were public. So I think that that's a step, at least in the right direction. I think there's a lot more to kind of dive into, but I'm really looking forward to reading these letters and hearing from these city employees.
Well, this is the thing too, and that's what people need to understand. My mom always says a closed mouth don't get fed. We wanted to hear from Councilmember Morales, and we stayed on top of that. We heard from Morales. Now Morales has put some stuff out. Now, you know me, I reached out to the mayor's office and to the executive branch and to see what comments or statements they have to make about these letters that Councilmember Morales has released, and, you know, and everything else. Ultimately, at the end of the day, I'll be honest with you. My interest isn't in city council. My interest isn't in the mayor. Our interest is in the community. And anybody who's obstructing, who's obstructing our community, man, this is what we're here for. We got to expose them, put a spotlight on them. So we're going to continue to follow this. And like I said, Councilman Morales mentioned us by name in her tweet, and so we put it up there.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, moving along right here. Let me grab this other notes. This is coming to us from the Seattle Times. And it's talking about the homeless service providers, the nonprofits. Here it is. Native homeless service nonprofits protest new Seattle outreach contracts. And for people who've been watching, you know, we talked about this the other day with Erica C. Barnett. I think that she was one of the first people to put it out there. That this article is by Sydney Brownstone of the Seattle Times. And basically, Native American-led homeless service organizations here in Seattle are refusing to sign or execute new outreach contracts. And they say, and this is crazy, man, because for every action, there's opposite and equal reaction. They're saying the city is trying to force them into a role that council members pushed when they defunded the navigation team. And the interim director at the Chief Seattle Club said, this is just a navigation team reimagined without the police and having the nonprofits do their work. And it said groups take aim at the contract provisions requiring, this is wild right here, requiring organizations to work at city prioritized encampments and conduct outreach at encampments slated for removals the same day. So, I mean, if they're slated for removals, then that means that now, you know, they're part of the sweep. And this would also take priority over for Chief Seattle Club over their service to Native Americans that are experiencing homelessness.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's really, really showcasing the wrong approach, if you ask me. When we talk about, you know, defunding the police or really creating systems that don't need police interaction for specific measures that happen within any city, you know, we understand that when we talk about these encampments, there is such a wide variety of ways that people do outreach to those who are unhoused. And it's not about the same structure that the city once had when they're looking to understand maybe some of the data metrics before they go in to do a sweep. It is very different. And I love that, honestly, they're standing back on this. They're saying, look, we're standing up. We're not going to go with that kind of contract. You're not going to be able to put our bodies now in the same place as the navigation team. I think it's important for the city to understand the reasons why and the nuances about the approaches, because ultimately there are organizations that come from a more relational approach that really have people that have experienced homelessness that are now staff folks that can bring a different type of approach that is very relational. And I think that this is another thing for me, unfortunately, where the city is looking at this transactionally, and it's not about sweeping like that, man. It really isn't. It's about serving the needs of the people that are out there who are unhoused. What is it we're going to do to make sure that they have proper housing? That's really the call here.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you, but this is, ladies and gentlemen, typical Seattle politics. And you see it close up here, and you see this knee-jerk reaction and everything else. And so, man, they basically, they defunded the navigation team, and that's fine, but what did you replace it with? And clearly nothing. And this is a problem here with homelessness a lot of times here in the city of Seattle is, man, it just gets remixed. You know what I'm saying? It's just remixed, repackaged, and everything else. And I mean, one of the things that the Chief Seattle Club is basically like the primary people that they serve, Native Americans that are experiencing homelessness. You're not finding them in these encampments and in these parks and everything else. So you're taking a group there, Chief Seattle Club, that has specialization, culturally relevant, and dealing with Native American population that's experiencing homelessness, and now expecting them to basically go and help sweep a population that's not necessarily their core expertise. Like, yes, they understand homelessness in generality, but every culture is experiencing homelessness a bit differently in how they got there and what they react and what they respond to. But, you know, I mean, like I said, in typical city fashion here, the expectation now that these service providers are going to go and do this job. I mean, this is something, and we see this a lot that comes out of City Hall, is people don't really think A to Z when they act. They may be A to like M. sometimes, but it's hardly ever A to Z. And these guys, they're pushing back on this contract.
I really am glad that they are, because it really, for me, the city needs to understand that these actions are really the wrong way to go. And if folks just say, you know what, all right, we're going to go ahead and take on the work, the city will never learn that. So, as we talk about this time being so transformational, it really takes groups like Chief Seattle Club and others that to stand up when they see that these kind of transactional approaches are really not part of their ethos. It's not how they move. And I just love that they're actually standing up on this one. I think it's really required for the city to understand, because again, we talk about diversity at the city council level all the time. And ultimately you have to understand that there needs to be a different approach.
This is crazy though, right? Because this is one of the most diverse city councils like ever. And everybody keeps throwing this BIPOC word around it. If you roll with BIPOC, Black, Indigenous, people of color, and this and that, why would this city even have somebody put that in a contract for the Chief Seattle Club? I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, man, that's a lot of smoke come out of City Hall, man. Yeah. Like, did nobody think, hey, man, this might not be cool or culturally relevant to have an organization that tends to focus on Native Americans who are experiencing homelessness, sweeping encampments over here where there's a very negligible a population of homeless Native Americans. So I mean, that's what I'm saying. These guys be waving this, we're in tune with BIPOC and community and everything else. But as they say, your budget represents your values, and where you're putting money, and this contract represent money, really shows the values and shows how out of touch City Hall is on this issue.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
All right, moving along. Big news here in the state of Washington, especially for those that are applying for college. We'll go ahead and put this one up. This is coming to us from the Seattle Times. Hannah Fafaro. Washington's public universities will no longer require the SAT or ACT. Will admissions become more equitable? And like I said, Hannah Fafaro from the Seattle Times here. And basically, as of Tuesday, the SAT and the ACT is no longer required to apply to a four-year university here in the state of Washington. Test is now optional, and you can submit it, but you won't be penalized if you don't. The test scores are no longer required to determine a student's ability to earn scholarships or placement in honors programs. And what they're saying is, man, we all know this is real, is that tests might indicate a talent, which is true, or it could demonstrate time and money that a student had to inject in prep. And a low score could indicate test anxiety and a lack of resources. I mean, it was a big deal back when I was in school, was just to try to raise money so people could take the PSAT. Yeah. And that was $35 for the PSAT. And so many students didn't have the $35 for the PSAT, let alone a tutor, let alone all these other things. And so what are your thoughts, Trey Holiday? Do you think this evens the playing field as far as admissions here in the state of Washington?
Well, I think it's really important because just as, what really showcases a student's ability to be successful at the collegiate level is really their consistency, right? And I love that this is happening, to be honest, because, there are already so many barriers when we talk about how, we have these disparity gaps with wealth and education. Well, how are we going to be intentional about it? And I think that this is a step in the right direction when we talk about the fact that, honestly, even when I was coming up, it was a huge deal, right? You had to have these scores. Those scores were supposed to be indicators of, how you performed as a student. But we know that that's really not the case. And I'm glad that data is now coming out to showcase it, because it's for those who had the ability to study. It's for those who had the ability to go to weekend programs that would help you understand all this. And your parents had to pay for that. I mean, it was another business, really, so to speak. It was a business transaction. So the fact that they're being able to identify it as such and realize every student doesn't have that ability, I love that Washington is standing up in this way.
Yeah, no, it's true. And we saw with this admission scandal, man, people with resources, I mean, they was buying buildings to get their kids admitted.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? A kid who don't know how to swim got a water polo scholarship and some everything else. Taking one step back here, I'm looking into the comments, and man, this is good stuff. We're actually reading the comments more and more here during the show. It says city council does not manage city department. Human services has been a mess for years. Shots fired. Council called them out repeatedly. That's Catherine Keller. So I agree that the actual contracts coming through human services. And what I'm saying, though, is when navigation was disbanded, what was the plan? You see what I'm saying? And as far as a blueprint that HSD should follow, right? I mean, so where people were like, man, we need to get rid of navigation team. We need to get rid of navigation team. Okay, so guys basically took the budget and removed it from navigation team. But in those conversations, it's like, okay, who's going to provide this, and that function? And, you know, I mean, that's a good place for some of that guidance. And now it's up to HSD, but at least, you know what I'm saying, it'll be out there. We'll talk to HSD. We're going to ask them, why are you making the Chief Seattle Club, which focuses on Native American homelessness, go and be up there sweeping encampments and everything? I mean, I'm interested. HSD might have they might have a good answer for that, and we'll follow up with them. As you can see, we're reading these comments real time during the show, so please do keep them coming.
Yeah, I just want to say, I mean, for me, this is why the community approaches, and when people are talking about, we really need to listen to community, we really need to understand how to do this better from a community approach that is culturally responsive, because when we throw out ambiguous terms like BIPOC, it really doesn't give the necessary tools for each ethnicity to feel that the approach that's coming for them is culturally responsive. And we have to do it in that way. That's what so many people have been saying. I just feel like this is it really is an example of not listening, right? And of thinking that there's a blanketed statement or a blanketed approach that can be done in this regard. And that's not the case. It does have to be, constructed to understand the needs of each specific ethnicity of the people that are out there. You can only do that by talking to the people, by bringing them into the solutions that you're trying to create. It isn't something that you can do because you feel like, you know what, we have the power as council people, as council members, we know what's best. You actually do have to listen to those who are dealing with it so that you can actually construct solutions alongside them, not for them.
Right. And, let's talk to HSD. People love coming on Converge, in government, because we give them their space. Whether it makes sense or don't make sense, we give people their space to come on here. You're not convincing me. You got to convince the community.
Yeah.
Period. You might have to convince me, but I'm just saying, ideally, people are wanting to convince the community. And also, something else to keep in mind, though, is that Chief Seattle Club is real vocal about this, and they're pushing back on this contract. But Chief Seattle Club is also one of the members of Compassion Seattle, this charter amendment. So, and I don't know how that plays, if this is a push for this to gain momentum over there. I don't think so. But, I would be remiss in not bringing up the point that Chief Seattle Club is part of that Compassion Seattle charter amendment. Yeah. So we'll see. Trey Holiday moving along. And, we were fortunate enough to go up to Communion the other day, the same day this big news came out about Communion on Union being named one of the top 12 new restaurants in the world by Condé Nast Traveler. Got a clip here from King 5. They checked in with Damon Bomar and Chef Christy Brown.
How y'all doing out here?
Yeah, no, it's terrible.
It's terrible. I was about to say, I'm sorry. I gotta take this away from them.
More than food.
It's a place where we just wanted to see our dreams realized.
4 years in the making, Communion Restaurant opened in December.
It feels amazing to be able to build a space in your own neighborhood.
Chef Christy Brown and her son Damon Bomar wanted to create a space where people felt at home.
Come on.
while enjoying a bit of Seattle soul.
What's Breeze pick for the day? Let's do it. I don't like the word fusion, but I guess I could use it in this sense. We're like definitely infusing a lot of different cultural aspects into the cuisine, but it's still us. You feel me? This is how I grew up.
A food experience that has caught on. Condé Nast Traveler named Communion one of the top 12 best new restaurants in the world.
That's huge. That's huge. I can't, but honestly, I think we're still processing it.
A recognition that enhances the significance of this moment.
And I think that there's a lot of synergy around the CD and bringing black businesses back in.
The restaurant sits on the ground floor of the Liberty Bank building. The original building housed the first black-owned bank in the Pacific Northwest.
It's a beautiful thing, like honestly. Yeah, especially just being in the CD, you know, historically black neighborhood, you know, and to see the changes and to see things that have gone down.
Chef Christie's signature black-eyed pea hummus and unique variations of soul food seem to be drawing even more people to the Central District.
Yeah, we're pretty booked out right now.
No kidding. Reservations are already booked through the end of June, with people rushing to get a taste of Seattle soul.
I appreciate y'all. Yeah.
Britt Moore, King 5 News.
All right, so it's good segment right there. Britt Moore, and that's King 5. Communion on Union, man, blowing up. This is such a great story because we've been following this for years. Yeah. And I mean, the accolades keep going in. And we was up there, and when we were up there just a few days ago, it was like, yeah, there's nothing in the month of May for a reservation. And now they're saying booked out through the month of June.
Yeah, I believe it. I mean, we witnessed it ourselves as we were up there, you know, the line just growing as we were just sitting out there eating. And the truth of the matter is that the menu is fabulous. It's not just about the fact that this is a Black-owned business coming back to an area that's been gentrified, that once had 80% Black, you know, population, and now it's around 12, right? But that is like on top of everything. The truth of the matter is that they're making great food, great drinks. It's a great ambiance. And honestly, they bring their personality to the table. As you saw Damon doing right there in the clip, he does it all the time. You know, Chef Christie is coming out and checking in with folks. We saw Chef Christie as folks were lining up, bringing a tray of water out for people. I mean, it really is about this hospitality approach that they bring to it. And, you know, I love the menu. But I really just love the fact that this story is picked up in a way that allows for folks to understand what we've known all along
for years,
and really showcasing what it takes to take an idea, right? You know, doing so much work in terms of the catering business, but taking that idea and building upon it and just watching it blossom like this, it does my heart some very much good.
Yeah, I like how you said amazing food and drank.
Yeah. You gotta add that in there, man.
That brown liquor.
Yeah, I would say Damon got the handcrafted.
He got the handcrafted cocktails, up there at Communion. You know what I'm saying? Absolutely. You trying to slide up there later?
We should try it. Yeah, you know, look, get in there at least.
I'm always with it. You know what I'm saying? Hey, but I guess two more things here. We're gonna take a break. We're gonna be back with Jay Grabrot. Yesterday, man, real emotional day for a team here at Converge. We actually did a shoot over there at the MOHI, the Museum of History and Industry. Like I said, it's the Stand Up Seattle exhibit, and it talks about the history of the democracy here in Seattle and across the state of Washington. And like I said, like Converge is in the exhibit, and you know, and people. And it's a picture of me there, and we did a video. My mama's in there too. She's just a few feet away from me in the exhibit. And I don't know. I'm not. And people were like, "Man, you should be shouting from the rooftop that you're in the museum and everything else." And you know, I feel some kind of way because it's like we're in MOHI, but all we did was really tell the story of the tens of thousands of people in Seattle who took to the streets. And I wish that we could put them in the museum. Like we're just doing our part. But we got a few photos here, and we'll go ahead and we can play those right now. And yeah, so these are all taken by Jay Grabrot, is there behind the scenes. That was Carlos Imani, one of the directors for the shoot yesterday. Stephanie Johnson Tolliver, and that's Enrique Cerna right there. And I mean, man, you know, Stephanie Johnson Tolliver, Black Heritage added so much. There's TK. TK was there talking to Enrique Cerna. It's one of the youth ambassadors over there. And man, you know, Enrique is an excellent interviewer. And I mean, when TK and Jake Grav brought there with TK as well, people who follow the Seattle protests, and you remember those interviews with TK all the way back in June, some everything else. And it's been such a saga with TK. And I remember during our arrest at the West Precinct, like basically, you know, during that arrest, cracked the skull, 13 stitches, you know, still in her head. And when TK came to the museum yesterday, he just felt like almost all the air, you know, leave the room. But real emotional day there at Mohai, talking to the camera and talking to Enrique Cerna about Converge Media's experience during the Seattle protest. And so we'll have a small video probably tomorrow talking about that. And then what we shot will be out in a few weeks.
Well, it is a big deal. I think that, you know, honestly, Mohai, you know, immediately recognizing people that have been on the ground last year during the protest movement, and, you know, recognizing Converge for being there to really cover this, I think is so huge. And, you know, shout out to everybody who poured their energy into really allowing Seattle to stand up. I think it's important. And I think that when we talk about, you know, continuing that and taking all of that momentum and moving it into a full-blown movement, I think that we really are doing that here in Washington State. And we're showcasing to the rest of the nation how people can get it done by utilizing that collective voice. So shout out to everybody. I think you're so right, Omari. There was so many thousands of people that took to the streets, thousands of people that were coming out to learn even. Maybe they didn't know that certain brutalities were happening. And yes, as they flooded their screens with major media, George Floyd was that, you know, last straw for people to just be like, enough is enough. And, you know, unfortunately, we've seen, you know, police deaths at the hands of police since George Floyd. But the real, I think, move for me, or things that really move me, is the fact that people understand that by utilizing their voices, they become a part of the solution by connecting with others who share your values and principles around life and equity for all of those things. That's what really inspires me so much. So shout out to you, Mohai, for taking a real lead here and being able to expose what took place there.
Yeah, and you know, it's like it's history. It's an amazing exhibit, Stand Up Seattle, because it's historical, and you find that what we're experiencing right now is a chapter in a very long book of people making their voices heard here in the Emerald City. We're getting ready to take a break. Before we do, want to put this link up here. Seattle Parks Department, Welcome Back Seattle grant, $10,000 for individuals, organizations, and small businesses to provide programming for those that are recovering from the tri-pandemic, you know, racism, COVID, economic downturn. The date and time to get this in is tomorrow at 11:59 p.m. If not, Lakima's gonna jump through your screen and say, no. and that link is there in the comments. Go ahead, share that with somebody who you know is doing programming or the capacity to do programming to help heal our community. $10,000 there for you. Take a quick break right now. We come back. We got the big fella, Jake Grav Brott. You are watching the Morning Update Show.
I did it for the city, I did it for the love, I did it for the people, I did it for us.
Back on this rap ish, I ain't even broke a sweat, homie, this practice. Pondering my next move, staring at my track list, hope I ain't missing my window. Praying like a Baptist, Seattle's own, tired of this Game of Thrones. They made a list of the best rappers and guess who wasn't on? While the disrespect continues, I'm steady packing these venues.
Converge Media produces culturally relevant content for Black and urban audiences. Our coverage is raw, transparent, and objective, praised by community leaders, government officials, and residents. Support Converge Media today via Venmo, Cash App, or PayPal at Converge Media.
All right, welcome back to the Morning Update Show. I'm joined now by, man, you have to be one of the most movingest around, photographingest photographers that I know. I mean, just this last weekend, you were up at Fairbanks, Alaska, and you were up there at Denali. Some people call it Mount McKinley. We call it Denali, the great one. Yeah, you were up shooting there, and then you flew back here. Then you were out there at the airport on Tuesday, which we'll talk about, and then all this other stuff. Mohai yesterday, man. You've been staying busy.
I try. I'm not as busy as you, but I try. There's I got you as an example of busy.
Oh man, well, don't get too busy then. Don't be as busy as me. So I want to talk to you about a few things here. And the first thing is that you were out there at SeaTac Airport when the salmon plane was Salmon 30 Salmon?
Salmon 30 Salmon.
Salmon 30 Salmon landed out there at SeaTac and brought the first of the Copper River salmon here to Seattle. The season is open. This is your second time out there now at the airport with Alaska Airlines, because of course we were out there for the commitment for the UNCF plane, which was amazing. Before we play this clip here, man, tell us about it.
Well, I'll admit, first of all, that when going down there on Tuesday to the Alaska Airlines cargo headquarters, I had really no idea what this tradition involved, how long it had been running for. But the first fish, as they call it, was brought in on a plane, Salmon 30 Salmon, from Cordova, Alaska, which is kind of the main source of Copper River salmon. And Copper River salmon is a really special type of fish. The taste and flavor of a fish comes largely in part from the waters that the fish swims through. And as I was just up in Alaska, obviously it's an incredibly beautiful and amazing place. And so the waters up there are much like nowhere else. So this first fish was brought down, and it was brought out on a red carpet by the pilots as it was flown in, and it was a little pomp and circumstance for a fish, a 50-pound fish at that, but it was pretty awesome.
All right, we'll go ahead and play this clip right here, and then I got to ask you a few questions.
Go for it.
This is a beautiful Copper River king salmon. It is the best salmon of the year because it represents the wild fish of our universe and how we have to take care of it. So we love that about it. I'm going to put it into on a charcoal grill tomorrow, applewood fire, low and slow, and just kind of cook that baby to medium rare and enjoy every minute of it. It's never gets old watching them come off the salmon plane, right? Yeah. Look at that baby. That's the biggest salmon in the world right there, that plane.
Today's kind of celebrating the opening of the Copper River king salmon fishery, or salmon fishery. And it's a really exciting time in Alaska, and especially in the Prince William Sound area, Cordova. Big deal for that community. They have a great product with the salmon they catch there, and we're just excited to be a part of it and excited to bring the fish down.
All right, so I got a question for you, but before I get to it, big shout out to Curtis Delgado and Ibrahim Omar on production assistants out there. Very serious question, Jake Grab brought.
Oh, it seems like it's going to be.
Did you kiss the fish as well?
No, but I actually thought about it. I thought about seeing, y'all want a member of the media to come up there and kiss the fish?
You seem like the type, though, that's open for that. You know what I'm saying?
I'm pretty selective on who I kiss, though. So, that fish, I don't know where it's been.
All right. Good stuff. And big shout out to Alaska Airlines as well. When we did the commitment, we went out there and we covered the United Negro College Fund plane. I mean, and what an amazing segment that you shot. Gary Washington edited. And the conversation with Alaska Airlines was like, man, Converge can just cover more than just black stuff. You know what I'm saying? And they're like, man, hey, we got this fish coming. Come on. And so, you know what I'm saying? We'll give a big shout out and acknowledgement to Alaska Airlines because, as these conversations evolve and people realize it's like, man, our skill set, yes, we're representing the Black community, but our skill set and our storytelling isn't just limited to things that people consider Black. And by the way, being from Seattle, growing up here, Black folk eat a lot of salmon, bro.
I mean, the Northwest it's incredibly popular here. And I think because we live in this bubble, we think, oh, maybe salmon is really popular everywhere, but it has its highest, density of popularity here in the Northwest. Right. And so even this story itself is important because of the way that it affects and impacts our economy. So many restaurants that will be, cooking up this fish over the course of now the next couple of months as it's in season.
Right. And you also caught up with Chef Trey Lamont, and we're going to be airing that tomorrow because Chef Trey Lamont went and you followed him going to the market and taking the salmon back to the jerk shack and preparing everything.
Yeah, he went hard on some salmon. I'm kind of excited to show this tomorrow because every time I'm sitting there in front of the computer editing this, I'm like hungry.
All right. So speaking of hungry, something else people are hungry for is more content from you. I mean, you've really, and you've earned it. You've really grown a following out there in Converge land and beyond. And want to take a minute here, and we're actually going to play a trailer for your new show that's launching Sunday at 7 p.m. called GTFO.
Backyard got mountains in it. I do not move until my accountant finish. Big mason jars, each one an ounce of spinach. You only see results, the real work ain't documented. Now what's realer than that? My drive is so crazy, I might speed with a flat. Keep a fly around me like I'm feeding a gnat. Or I'm feeding a cause she feeding for that. I ain't a player, I just crush a lot. And I'm all in like a Russian bot. See, I don't trust the streets, and I don't trust the thought. But a real woman I could love a lot. And we could tie the knot, if she love or not. Just wanna plot, till they dig your plot. But that's cool, I ain't controlled by fear, no. If I blacked on you, it's cause I care, bro. Quarantine bars so essential. Sorta sharp as my mental. You have to unravel the scroll to check my credentials. They don't care about what you can't, only what you can.
All right, GTF outside. I'll let people figure out these acronyms here. Man, what can people expect?
Music, the great outdoors, profile in a national park every episode at least. And then I'm creating specific content just for the show. So I've been working with musicians to actually go and create a music video for the show itself.
Ladies and gentlemen, do you hear this? So not only is this guy flying to like Fairbanks and Denali and Yosemite, Grand Teton, all these are Zion National Park, and he's shooting stuff there. Then in his show, he's hooking up with a recording artist, shooting them a music video, and then putting this episode. Man, whew, I used to think I was the hardest working man in production, but I'm ready to pass the title over to you. All right, so that's this Sunday at 7 o'clock. So anywhere you're watching the Morning Update show, you can catch Jake Grabright. Thank you, Jake, for joining us this morning.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, we're going to take a ZYD break right now. When we come back, Trey Holiday returns to the set. You're watching the Morning Update show.
Public Health, Seattle, King County, Zero Youth Detention, along with our partners from across the South King County region, are committed to reducing violence and creating the conditions needed for our neighborhoods to be safe and free of crime. Too often, the response to crime and violence has been a piecemeal approach with a program here and a program there. When family units collapse, schools fail to educate, the economy fails to produce jobs, and crime rises, we've looked to law enforcement and punitive measures to save us. Nothing could be more wrong or further from the truth. Law enforcement can't shoulder all the burden or take the rest of us off the hook. We're acknowledging the lived experiences of Black, Brown, and Indigenous communities. We are centering community as the experts who can effectively identify key issues related to systems, policies, and practices that impact children, families, and communities of color across this region. Those most impacted by the issues will help call out and identify the root causes, including structural and systemic factors. 150 residents will partner with King County to develop strategies, solutions, and an action plan that explicitly addresses system changes needed and eliminates barriers to access for Black, Brown, and Indigenous folks. These residents will also identify the criteria used to measure our collective success. Simply put, we need your help as we do the work needed to make King County the safest in this country. It will take specific commitments from all of us, community members, our young people, elders, and leaders from the sectors all across this region. Together, we will get this work done. Please click the link below and sign up for a work group. Or you can recommend a co-facilitator from community for each work group. We look forward to hearing your ideas, concerns, feedback, and solutions as we build a community where all our children can be happy, healthy, hopeful, safe, and thriving.
All right, welcome back to the Morning Update Show. Man, a great opportunity right there, zeroyouthdetention.com/work groups. Man, let your voice be heard and how we can increase public safety and reduce gun violence here in King County. Trey Holiday, welcome back to the set.
Yeah, thank you.
Something we didn't, usually the last segment is real uplifting and everything. But something we didn't get to talk about yesterday was the passing of comedy legend Paul Mooney. And we'll play this clip right here and we'll talk about it on the other side.
Celebrating Paul Mooney, the trailblazing comedian who worked with Richard Pryor and Dave Chappelle, using comedy to talk about social issues in a way few had done before. Chris Conley joins us with a look at his life and career. Glad to have you here, Chris. Good morning.
And good morning to you, Robin. And amid all the tributes, Dave Chappelle may have said it best. All comedians who believe they can't say anything, remember, Paul Mooney sacrificed stardom so he could say everything. So he did, and it made him a legend.
Ain't so funny when it's your mama, huh?
Never backing down in examining race, serving up unsparing assessments that hit their target.
Yeah, black people can jump high. You gotta jump. Gotta do something when you're running from the police.
Even by stand-up comic standards, Paul Mooney was uncommonly fearless and frank, essential every time he stepped in front of a mic.
I don't think we get the Chris Rocks, the Kevin Harts, the Dave Chappelles without those early days of Paul Mooney.
On Chappelle's show, he would excel as a comic soothsayer.
Why is President Bush so sure Iraq has weapons of mass destruction?
Because he has the receipt. Next question.
And star in the acclaimed series Ask a Black Dude segment.
The black man in America is the most copied man on this planet.
Shock and sadness filled social media after news of Paul Mooney's death Wednesday at the age of 79, along with deep admiration. A comedy giant, wrote Ava DuVernay. Yeah, the jokes, but more so the freedom. He spoke freely and fearlessly about feelings and experiences others found difficult to express. May he be truly free now. Yet Paul Mooney might have been most revered for his work with Richard Pryor. When Pryor hosted SNL in its first year, Mooney wrote the sketch Word Association, where a job interview erupts into a volley of racial slurs. 46 years later, still the most shocking and dangerous 3 minutes of comedy in network TV history, it stands as a tribute to the magnitude of Paul Mooney's achievement. Paul Mooney also collaborating with Richard Pryor on albums, TV specials, and concert films that helped to create Pryor's unassailable stature in comedy. He gave us a lot.
He
Guys?
truly paved the way, Chris. Thank you. Thank you so much.
That right there from ABC Good Morning America. Man, Paul Mooney kept it real.
He just did. And you know what? When I think about somebody like a Paul Mooney, I just started thinking about so many different names because there weren't that many folks that were, as they were saying, expressing it with that freedom. And the fact that he did, say, you know what? I don't have to be the star because I actually have to be who I am authentically. We see a lot of people that say, you know what? Let me stay in the lines here so that I'm not making those who are paying me uncomfortable. But Paul Mooney was very different and always brought the message of real racism that was happening all around him in his life, his real experiences to light. And, I love that they pointed out the work he was doing with Richard Pryor and that SNL clip in particular, because it really does showcase him just kind of almost at his best, where he was like, you know what, we're going to tackle this stuff head on. We're not going to be behind the scenes, man, with it. Paul Mooney was a real one.
Negrodamus. How do you know he sold the weapons? He has the receipts.
Yeah. So good.
All right. So this weekend, Trey Holiday, mentioned yesterday. Was it yesterday? Yeah, yesterday, Malcolm X's birthday. And this weekend, there's a lot of stuff going on, but one event in particular that you're a part of, we'll go ahead and put this slide up on you.
Yes, Malcolm X Hip Hop Soul Rally. This is really kind of the kickoff to event season that is coming up in this spring and summer. Really looking forward to showcasing more and more events that are going to bring teach-ins, rallies, marches, performers, speakers, all of that so many throughout Seattle and beyond experienced last year. This is a kickoff, and it's really going to be exciting right there at Jimi Hendrix Park from 1 to 7 this Saturday. I'm looking forward to it because this is a great mix of some talent that we have right here in the city and beyond, because we're going to have some folks that are there doing hip hop, but also folks doing soul. So I love that we have some amazing bands on the lineup, as well as some great performers and speakers. So you're definitely sure to learn and really bring Malcolm X's message to the forefront. This is a celebration of his legacy. And so this has been curated so that, the performers and the speakers are really there, with that same kind of message around what Malcolm X stood for, what he was about. And we understand, that there's so many people that still need to learn. For us, we grew up reading his autobiographies. We grew up understanding about some of these great folks in our community and throughout the nation. But, I'm glad that we're going to kick off this Saturday with this Malcolm X Hip Hop Soul Rally.
All right. Good stuff. So another thing here, this show is the directing debut for Curtis Delgado. Clapback Culture tonight at 7:00. Julia Jesse of Converge Media and Mike Davis of the South Seattle Emerald got another episode of Clapback Culture, and that's tonight at 7:00. Anywhere right now where you're watching the Morning Update show, check that out. Always lots of, that's our most commented show. So like if you go for comments and engagement, so if you like to get in the comments, please don't be mean or profane. But if you really like to get in the comments, especially on current events and issues, tune in tonight at 7:00 for Clapback Culture. Any last words before we get out of here, Trey?
I'm always inspired by the stories that we share right here on Converge. And I'm glad that our audience find ways to let us know how you're inspired. But find ways, as always, to see yourself as a part of the solution. We're talking about folks really bringing their brilliance to bear. There's a lot of ways to do that. And as we look at this event season, even if you want to just be volunteering, you guys can find ways to plug in with some of these organizations that are hosting these amazing events and bring yourself to just say, hey, I'm here to set up tables, chairs, whatever's needed. All of that kind of energy is necessary, and it is helpful in seeing yourself as part of the solution.
All right. Good stuff. As I said, tonight, 7:00, Clapback Culture, Julia Jesse and Mike Davis. And for now, I think that's everything. We'll reach out over to HSD, see what HSD is talking about. Also, we reached out to the mayor about these letters that Councilmember Morales tweeted out, and also reached out to Director Mantilla over Department of Neighborhoods, and also a director over there at the Office of Civil Rights. So lots of follow-up going on.
Yeah.
All that being said, though, before we get out of here, I want to remind you to go forward in your purpose, go forward in your humanity. And until tomorrow at 11 a.m., peace.
Lift every voice and sing till earth in heaven ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise
song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of a new day.